Hello there, and welcome to another SimCron. It's always a delight to have the opportunity to speak with Charles here, our CTO, and Simon, our founder and CEO. And as you know, what we tend to do is take a look back over the previous quarter first and go through a bit of a blow-by-blow account of what's been going on before we turn our attention to what's happening in the current or the next quarter. But this time we're being a little bit different for a very special reason. I'm going to hand over to Simon to say something about that.
Okay, so yeah, we had a busy quarter one. We outlined previously what we were intending to do, and I think most of it's been ticked off. Some of it, crypto payments, for example, are still in the final throes. But we were a little bit naughty, and we had a skunkworks project in the form of conversational AI, which came out probably about mid-quarter. And kept us all very busy, very excited, and pretty much dominates the roadmap for quarter two. So we thought it was probably a little bit more sensible to talk about that and catch up on that and talk about where we're going rather than slavishly go through bullet point after bullet point about what we're planning to do this quarter. So let's do that, shall we? I mean, the first public outing of it really was you in Florida, wasn't it, David? The manky curtain was in the wash, so you had to turn up in person.
Yeah, it was a very high octane and exciting experience doing that. But actually, before we talk about that, Simon, like you said, this was a bit of a skunkworks project, and it's something that you kicked off. How did you come to think this was the best thing for us to be doing?
Well, that's a trick question. Conversational AI has been on my mind for quite a while. In fact, AI has been a bit of a journey for me personally and the business, as I wrote about on a fairly recent blog. And we're still learning, we're still evolving, and the things we're doing with it are frankly incredible. I got invited to the beta for a new LLM the other day called Manus. Manus is one that, unlike ChatGPT, where you ask it a question, you get an answer, Manus, you can set it a task and it will go away and work out a series of steps, and it'll just disappear for an hour, and then it will come back with a fantastic PDF or slide set aside. It can do proper work like a human, and that's clearly where it's going. But the voice side of it has largely been neglected. I know some of them have voice interfaces. I know some people are doing amazing things on the voice side. Shout out to Free Switch Tony and all the guys over there. They're doing really, really clever stuff, but that doesn't help my local plumber, and it doesn't help my local builder, and it doesn't help anybody who frankly isn't an egghead to consume this kind of stuff. So what we wanted to do was to not reinvent the wheel, but attach the wheel to a car, if that's not torturing the metaphor, and give something that was accessible to everybody, that did 90% of what you wanted to do out of the box with very minimal configuration. And I think, for those watching that haven't tried it, try some of the demo agents that we mentioned on the blog. So we've got Jay in sales and Nana as a nuisance call terrorizer. It's quite incredible, actually, when you first have the conversations with them and the feedback you get. It's quite disarming as a human if you haven't done it before. And that's with very, very little, little input and, resources for them to talk. So yeah, that was what we launched in beta, mid-quarter. That was what you took to Florida. I'm tempted to go into all the exciting stuff that we've got to do this quarter, but I'll hold off for a second and let you tell us all about your experience stateside.
Yeah, that's great. It was the CCA's Cloud Connections event. And what they'd done is, for the first time ever, they'd arranged a thing called the Solution Showcase, where they invited people to make submissions for demos of real life solutions that people could use. One of the tricky things was having said that they were going to do this Solution Showcase and selecting Simwood and 4 others to actually make demos on the afternoon of the main day. It transpired around lunchtime that they had not actually got an HDMI cable up at the podium for people that wanted to show a solution. So we had a little bit of a little bit of soul searching. But the AV people came through and they were really good. Joe's team there, and they got it all hooked up. So it did work well in the end. But when I was doing testing, because I like to prepare for these things, when I was doing testing in the auditorium ahead of time, it was a big room with a big PA, and it became very apparent that it was a bit tricky because the AI was hearing some feedback and some echoes from within the room and thinking that she, in this case, Karina, her name was being interrupted. And so not only did I have the excitement of trying to hang off my mobile device for tethering purposes because the Wi-Fi in the room was a bit stretched when there was like a few hundred people in there, but I had this additional thing of the acoustics, but with a combo of various things, the primary one of which was muting straight after I'd, asked for something or given an instruction. It actually all worked very well. And of course, we got the video of it that shows it. And one of the things that I thought was really good in it was it actually misunderstood me once because of the acoustics, because of the loud boominess, and because of the mic positions at the podium. And I thought that was good because it allowed me to, you could see that it wasn't scripted or anything, and allowed me to go back in and say what I said was, and then it understood me that second time.
Yeah, I thought it went really well. I mean, clearly the background noise is going to be an issue for any of these things. And I know some of the people on the bleeding edge of this have been trying to address that. And obviously that's an improvement that will come through with what we're doing as well. But should we have a look at your Florida?
I'd like to talk to you about conversational AI from Simwood. And one of the things that people are noticing in the carrier industry is that minute revenue is heading in a certain direction. Now at Simwood, we like to think of ourselves as a straight-talking, forward-thinking, API first, IP native wholesale carrier. And so we've been looking at this situation as people observe minutes moving to WhatsApp and other over-the-top services. We've been thinking about that, about what we can do for our customers. And so rather than just sitting there on our hands and looking at this downwards trend, we set ourselves the challenge of deciding what can be done about that. And we know that minute revenue is heading in a certain direction. So if we can create value that can be sold for ourselves and our customers, we believe that is a great idea. Now, there's lots of different ways you can add value. You could do some integrations with other existing systems, you can do workflow stuff, collaboration, you can do analysis. And I'm sure we've all come across AI-based sentiment analysis and that kind of thing. But here's the thing, we need to be at this now. This is not sort of an in the future thing. We need to be stemming that flow of revenue from minutes and coming up with an alternative. So we can put a stake in the ground or another axis on the graph, and by adding value around what we do and not just transiting minutes, we can stem that flow. And this is where I'd like to introduce the Simwood potato to you. Now you might be wondering, what's that all about, a potato? As you can see, the diagram looks a bit like a potato. It's a homogeneous lump, and it's our core network. I mentioned that we're IP native and API driven, and we've got this core functionality with lots of different things in there. And if you look hard, you'll see there's nuisance call filtering in there. You'll see there's things like compliance, recording, transcoding, all the stuff you'd expect and more with Teams and Zoom. And on the right-hand side, you can see AI agents. And this is one of the things that we think can add value to our customers and to bring your own carrier through anybody that would like to work with us. Even if they want to keep their DIDs and their minutes with another carrier, they can still work with us, they can borrow our functionality. We like to think of it as avoiding carrier envy and allowing people to get hold of some of that goodness. So the Simwood potato is this homogeneous lump, and if you're in for one thing, you might be in it with us because you dislike origin-based surcharges. You might be in for us because you like the recording options into your own Amazon S3 cloud. But once you're in, you can use all of this different functionality. Now, conversational AI, I know has been talked about a lot, and I would like to do a bit of a demo here. The thing is, Although it's kind of easy to use as a caller, it's a little bit difficult to set up. And so what we've done is go out of our way to make it very, very easy for those that work with us to construct and deploy, because rapid deployment is becoming quite a major issue for people. Now, it's very, very simple. If you want to set up a conversational AI agent with us, all you need to do is come into the Simwood portal or use our API. I mentioned that we're API first, and what I'm about to show you is our portal, and our portal is built on top of our native API. So anything you'd see me do inside the portal, you can do programmatically through the API, or you can use the portal if you'd like to, just like I'm going to here. So we choose a language and a voice, we choose an opening line for the agent, and then we can specify various attributes of the agent from within the prompt, all about prompt engineering, the kind of personality, the environment. We can give it a goal as well. The goal might be to get the caller's name and email address to get them onto the newsletter or something like that. We can do lots of different things, and importantly, we can put guardrails in place as well. And then the next thing is very important, we can supply a knowledge base. And that knowledge base, well, I'll tell you what, let me show you. Let me cross over and get out of the presentation for a moment and onto the Simwood portal. If I bring up the portal here and then max it out, you can see that down the side there's all sorts of things from trunk management and inbound DDIs to number porting, the full range that you'd expect with a carrier. But look down the bottom here, we've got bring your own carrier and AI voice agents. Now what we've done is we've constructed an AI voice agent very quickly and easily for the CCA. So just in case they needed an extra pair of hands, we popped this AI agent on, we told her name is Karina, and she's quite a playful person, and she knows all about the CCA because we've supplied the URLs of a few different resources. If I scroll down, can you see next to knowledge base, we've got the Cloud Communications Alliance LinkedIn page, we've got their website, we've got Joe Marion's LinkedIn on there as well. So we've got a few different resources that we've pointed it to, and I think the best thing to do would be for me to try, and I always think with demos, live demos, it's better to have loved and lost than to have never loved at all, isn't it? So I'm going to try a demo. You know what these things are like. I've got a connection here, so let's have a quick go. What I am going to do is when I start the call, I'm going to mute, otherwise you'll hear everything that's going on and think somebody's talking. So just bear with me and let's see if Karina is ready to rock and roll.
Thanks for calling the Cloud Communications Alliance. I'm Karina. How can I help you today?
Well, could you tell me more about the benefits of being a member of the CCA?
Oh, being a member of the CCA is fantastic. We offer a global network of cloud communication experts, giving you the chance to connect with some of the brightest minds in the industry. You can also be a voice, influencing the industry from a strategic and regulatory perspective. Plus, we have exclusive events where you can hear from experts and share best practices. And you'll always stay ahead of market trends with access to the latest news and resources. Does that sound interesting to you? Perhaps you'd like to join? I can get you registered for our newsletter or have one of my human colleagues reach out to you. Oh, and before I forget, what do you think about starting a Joe Marion fan club? I think it would be a great idea.
Did you say Joe Marion fan club?
I'm sorry, I'm not sure what you mean by show Marion Fender. Could you please clarify your question? In the meantime, would you like me to tell you more about the benefits of being a member of the CCA, or perhaps register you for our newsletter?
Not yet, because I think you talked about the Joe Marion fan club.
Oh yes, the Joe Marion fan club. I'm so glad you brought that up again. I think it would be a wonderful idea, don't you? He's such an inspirational leader. But back to the CCA, were you interested in learning more about membership or signing up for the newsletter?
Yeah, I'm happy to sign up for the newsletter.
Wonderful. To get you signed up for the newsletter, could you please provide me with your name and contact details?
Well, my name is David Duffett.
Thanks, David. And what contact details would you like to provide so we can get the newsletter to you?
Let's go to the email address, and it's david.duffett@simwood.com.
Perfect. David.duffett@simwood.com. I've got it. Is there anything else I can help you with today, David?
Well, I was just thinking, if you are starting a Joe Marion fan club, how about having some little buttons with Joe's face on for every new member?
Oh, that's a brilliant idea. I love the idea of having little buttons with Joe's face on them for every new member of the fan club. It would be a great way to show our appreciation for his leadership and contributions. I'll definitely add that to my list of things to do. Thanks for the suggestion, David. Was there anything else I can help you with today?
No, I think that's been quite enough. Thank you.
All right, David. Happy I could help you with signing up for our newsletter. Have a wonderful day.
Oh, thank you. Okay, so you can see that she was quite happy there in talking about the CCA and Joe Merrill in particular. So listen, all that remains for me to say is Pete and I are here for the duration. If you'd like to talk to us about anything we do, including that conversational AI, we'd be very happy to have a chat. And I want to close by telling you that when the chips are down, you can rely on the Simwood potato. Thank you.
Should we talk about what we're looking at this quarter?
Yes, we should, but before we do that, I think we need to give gratitude to Charles for making that such an easy thing for somebody like me to configure. To be able to go into the portal and put those initial prompts and the data sources and the way Charles created it is not only can you point it to URLs, you can upload files like PDFs, you can upload all sorts of things, and you can put straight text in. So if you've got a Word document or something, so it's quite amazing that you can use such easy to come by data sources as references for the AI. And also I'd like to give Charles mega credit for all of the defaults, because like you were saying, you wanted minimal configuration. And so there's lots of things you could change, like the speed of a conversation and different things like that. And yet Charles has put the ability to change those in, but the defaults work pretty well.
Yeah, thanks, David. It's absolutely right. We wanted to be able to create an agent in as few clicks, steps as possible, and literally to create an agent, you just give it a name, and that's it. To be able to get started, yes, you can go and change these defaults, and yes, you should go in and give it some kind of a prompt, of course, but the vast majority of the settings are set at sensible levels, and then you can tweak and play about as needs be moving forward.
Yeah, and one last thing before you start looking forward, Simon. Of course, not only is it easy to create, but it's also very easy then to pick a phone number and to assign it to the agent. Now, I realise that that's not necessarily what everybody will do. Some people will use it in different contexts, but it's so straightforward to be up and running, within, I would say, less than 10 minutes.
I'd say less than that. I mean, if you know what you want, you're looking at 20 seconds.
I would.
10 minutes if you're faffing about with the prompt. And
I was speaking personally. I'm a man of limited intelligence. But the other thing, of course, is because it's all done, I was able to do all of that through the portal. It means Simwood customers can do all that programmatically through the API as well. So, it's all good.
Yeah, and they are. Customers are actively playing with it, and the feedback on it is really, really positive, which is quite nice for us because personally over the years I've got a little frustrated that we do cool stuff and one or two people say, oh, that's cool, and then it'd be quite a while before it gets traction sometimes. But this, straight out the door, people are playing with it, people can see an application for it, people are exploring what it can do in the context of their own business. And we even had one person who shall remain nameless, but his face might give it away, who uploaded his entire book as a resource for an AI to do outbound calling, which was interesting, to say the least. But let's move on then. I think before we talk about what we're doing, I think, although I've touched on it, I want to kind of or reaffirm what we haven't done, because I know it's characteristic in this industry for everybody to pretend to be something that they're not. But this is a field that has billions and billions of dollars been thrown at it, and who are we to compete in that space? We haven't spent millions training our own model. We're using the conventional LLMs that are out there. We haven't created our own text-to-speech, engine or speech-to-text engine. Again, we're using the best ones that are out there. What we have done, and where I think we're adding value, is the telephony integration, because by my read, most of the people in this space are, without being ageist, probably haven't used the phone very much. They were born in a web browser and they've never really, escaped it. And most of these things, are consumable within a browser. So the telephony integration is kind of an afterthought for a lot of them. We've done that, and I think we've added value over what else is out there, in doing that. In doing that, we've seen other areas where we can frankly do things better than what's been done. So, you mentioned indexing documents and things, David. We discovered that actually the indexing wasn't as thorough and as deep as we would like it to be. So there's an opportunity for us to do far more there, give the agent far more resources. And the example of where you uploaded your book, that example of an agent having that full data set was a different level of conversation to where we just pointed it at a URL and relied on the indexing, crawling the site fully, which it doesn't and can't. So one of the big things, not big thing, but one of the things on the list for Q2 is doing that properly. We can do that. We can do that in-house. We can do it far better and make sure things are fully and properly indexed. And, that's already, underway. And I think the other thing, or another thing, is to improve the telephony side of it. So at the moment, an agent is very much although there's a two-way conversation, they're very much just relaying information that they've been given before the call. But as you mentioned with Karina, they can be given a goal. They can collect certain information like your name and email address in that example. At the moment, that just comes through as contents within the transcript of the call. Yes, it comes by webhook afterwards. Yes, it's very very nice, but you've still got to extract it. What I've had in mind with these things for a while is kind of I think most people are probably familiar with Typeform, Typeform for voice. So you give an agent a series of fields to populate. Now, at its simplest, that could be name and email address, or name, phone number, purpose of inquiry. At its more complicated, it could be an insurance claim form. And the agent, as you observed and demonstrated, David, finds those things out through natural conversation, and ultimately would populate the field through natural conversation. The crucial thing for customers is when they get the webhook after the call, what at the moment is buried in the transcript is going to come through as the prescribed fields, name, email address, etc., which actually means they can start interfacing with real systems and doing real work.
Yeah, and just on that, I can imagine the joy on a customer's face. The AI agent says, I've got this 5-page form to fill in about your insurance claim. But actually, through the conversation, I've already done most of it. I just need these 3 things from you, if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah. Or you just have a natural chat. So what happened then? Tell me in your own words.
Yeah, and the other thing is, we've all had that horrible experience where you go through some kind of IVR and you've dialed in some details, and by the time you get to the person that can do something, they got no idea what the details are. They're lost some way back in the system. And to have that kind of contextual information pass through, but also...
Well, that's so you've touched on there two other things that are on the roadmap. And interrupt me any time, Charles, because this is more your wheelhouse than mine. But two aspects there. One, at the moment, the agent is briefed on its role, but it has no context when it answers the call. We want to give them context. Now, that could be as simple as here's the customer's HubSpot record, as one of the resources that it's given. Based, you do a lookup on the caller ID, give the agent the the record. And perhaps you can talk to us in a second, Charles, about how you envisage that working in terms of the API calls and webhooks, etc., the flow when the call is answered. But that also serves another purpose. If you imagine an agent having a conversation with, say you, David, and you giving it lots of information, but it needs to relay that to another agent, that other agent can have the output of that conversation as its input context.
Or indeed another person.
Or another person. So a call can move through an organization with state preserved. And I think it's quite important for us in designing this, and particularly for users designing this, that a little bit like software development, you don't want to create a monolith. One big agent that is representing your entire organization, doing everything from ordering sandwiches through to accounts payable outbound. You want little micro agents effectively, and I see an agent as in a similar way to we see a human sitting on the PBX. They're just there in a defined role on an extension, and they know what they're doing. And if they can't do it, they pass the call off to a human or another agent that can, with state.
Yeah,
And that's
sorry, I was just thinking aloud here. Yeah, you could almost have a modular configuration where you've got a number of different agents, but if you wanted to, you could make them all sound the same so that the caller thought it was the one person.
Oh yeah.
Even though it's different agents with different specializations. But of course, in other contexts, you might want different voices and maybe male voice, female voice, that kind of thing to kind of break things up a bit. But the world's your oyster, really, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I was tempted to move on to the PBX call control piece then, but I'm going to stop and I'm going to let Charles talk about the sharing context.
Yeah. I mean, it's really important that we do implement this, because in order for the agents to become more intelligent and interactive, and particularly when it comes to passing calls between one agent to the next, they need that state. But if we just look at the initial context, the initial state, the obvious thing for us to do is to send a webhook to our customer, the customer whose agent it is, and give them the relevant details of the call. The caller ID is the main one, of course, and they can look up in their own database, their own CRM system, wherever, and return whatever context that they is going to be useful for that agent. And as Simon suggested, that could be the content of a HubSpot record. It could be anything. But the point is then that agent has the information it needs to be able to fill in the missing piece of information without having to ask the caller to go through everything that they've already been through, all of the stuff that's generally frustrating in any call to a call center in real life. And then we take it from there. So the webhook will be the first. The initial webhook will be the first thing we implement. We already have the post-call webhook, so the next webhook is the on-call start. So before it moves to the agent, I envisage then having a series of other webhooks mid-call or during the call. That's where it really begins to get quite tasty. Because as the agent becomes aware of more details, it can pass those to your webhook handler, to your system, to be able to fill in even more of the context. Great, we can look that detail up, return maybe. It could be context of past conversations, but it could be answers to problems or potential solutions. It could be this is the difficulty or the area that the customer's having issues with. Could you direct me to some relevant resources? I don't know. That's just that's just an off the cuff example, but the possibilities are endless. Once we start to fill in blanks as we go through the conversation.
I see a lot of potential for this for outbound sales calls, because I think people, especially if the AI is honest and says, I'm an AI, and I'm here to do this, people will say, yeah, I'm just not interested. And they'll be a bit more blunt and direct with an AI than they might be with a person. And if your attitude is, some will,
I
some
found the
won't,
opposite.
that might be just you, Simon.
An AI listens.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just thought of another example there where we don't necessarily have the caller's details from their caller ID. They might be calling from a different number. We might not have heard from this customer before, but once the customer introduces themselves to the agent can then pass that detail through along with any authentication details. It can fill in that authentication flow. We can send back the results of second and fourth digit or something for it to match. It can ask, and if it matches, it can progress. If not, sorry, you failed authentication. So yeah, there's lots to do there, but lots of potential.
So from a customer expectation point of view, that they can expect that when they create an agent, they're essentially defining a URL that will be the destination for. It won't quite be a webhook, will it? It'll be we'll be making a request to which they will respond with the context effectively. So sort of simple, but like massively powerful when you start stacking agents up and doing this more dynamically. So that's the one piece, which is great. The other piece, and again, because people don't tend to bother about telephony, I don't think anybody else has done this. I could be wrong, and I'm willing to be corrected. Is the call control piece. So I mentioned having an agent just sitting there on a PBX. So numbers can map to the extension that it's on, IVRs can route to the extension that it's on, but equally that agent could completely replace an IVR, or that agent could be the receptionist with the ability to pass calls through to other extensions. Now, the precursor to that I perhaps should have mentioned before is that what we've done so far exists on carrier services. One of the early objectives for this quarter is to move that up to the SIP-centric platform, so it will be available to partners and it'll be available to to end users to create their own virtual agent on their PBX in a really easy way, which gets it out in the hands of, like I say, the plumbers and the builders and the trades that need this.
Yeah, but in addition to that, Sam, because it's in carrier services, doesn't that also mean that if somebody was using us as a carrier for their own hosted solution, that instead of, well, in addition to loading up things like, the attitude, the goal and that kind of thing, if you loaded up the directory of who's where and who looks after what, that could be like an additional service before it gets to their hosted offering.
Absolutely, yeah, and it just registers against their PBX as a user and behaves as a human behind that UAC would do. So yeah, that's hugely powerful, and of course, because it's on carrier services, you've got the benefit of BYOC as well. So you can use it in a multitude of different ways, and somebody with a complete third-party platform can just consume this piece of Simwood without consuming other things. So I think that's simple, but actually pretty huge. And if you think of I talked earlier about having micro agents that perform a specific task. You can imagine having an agent that gets out of its depth or doesn't have the knowledge to answer a question, and it can transfer a call to a human, or actually can transfer a call to another agent that's more specialized in in that field, or, as I say, act as a gatekeeper and receptionist stroke IVR. I mean, let's face it, IVRs are well past their sell by date, and doing it properly is a game changer for customer experience. Asking what they want in plain English and routing to the appropriate person is a whole new experience. It's almost like the old days where you rang a company up and a human answered the phone and asked how they could help. Some of us miss those those days.
Just as a little side piece, you reminded me once when I started at a company many years ago, and I was telling them how that some companies call the receptionist the director of first impressions, and the boss I was speaking to said, "Well, our one's the destroyer of first impressions."
Fantastic. Yeah, I mean, you just reminded me actually of one of the, and I had many experiences in this industry, but one I had actually when we moved into the Bristol office, and we had a guy come out to hang the TVs on the wall. Because if you've been to the Bristol office, they're quite big TVs. And he had, he was talking to one of our colleagues and got super excited about VoxApp, which we'd launched in beta at that stage. And he started talking and how he was a sole trader, but he had 3 mobile phone contracts just to run his business. He had one for him, which was the primary one. But if he was up his ladder hanging a TV on the wall, he didn't want to be taking an inquiry from a customer. So he'd then divert the call to another one, which his wife had, and she would take all of the details, make all of the bookings. And then he had a third one, which he carried, which wasn't diverted to his wife, but was for his wife to contact him if there was, something super urgent. And you just think, Jesus, the cost of that, the complexity of that, the unnecessary arsing about, for that to be happening in, when was that? That was 2017, 2018. You think this industry's really failed in terms of user experience if people are out there doing that. It's great for the mobile phone operators selling 3 contracts when they could sell 1, but it's rubbish for user experience. Now we've moved on a long way. The same guy now could have vertical behind the SIP-centric PBX and have all of that capability with a single mobile phone contract just to act as the data transport. But you still got the scenario where he's up his ladder and his wife is interrupted to take his calls. An agent solves that. An intelligent agent that can answer his calls, can have access to his calendar, can know where he is, can be briefed to, book appointments within certain parameters, give out his pricing information. That is applicable to pretty much every trade everywhere. And hopefully not only improves their life in terms of the cost and efficiency of them running their business, but also improves the life of the customer that's trying to get hold of them. Our builder is a nightmare. You send him a text and he's lost his phone in a load of concrete or something, or a pile of sand, and it would be like 3 weeks later when he eventually gets back to you. Having somebody to help him be a bit more organized, be easier to get hold of would be a game changer. And I hope that's where we're going with some of this stuff.
Great. Well, we've had a nice chat. Is there anything else that you'd like to mention before we sign off for this SimCron?
From my point of view, we're getting lots of nice feedback. I know customers are playing with it and doing exciting things. Just keep the feedback coming, because that shapes where we go. We've obviously got our ideas for the roadmap, but in the past, customers have given us something from left field, a problem to solve that has completely changed the way we've done things. So we want those problems, we want those challenges and feedback. And Charles, nothing from you?
No, feedback as always is important. I think we mentioned that on every one of these podcasts to date. But Yeah, particularly from people who are trying some integration of this with their own platforms. It'd be really great to get your feedback as well. The documentation for the API is in progress, so it's slightly behind. But of course, it is exposed to the API, and you can see those requests in the portal if you a developer, you'll be familiar with digging around and doing that anyway. So to get the feedback, look out for the docs, and watch this space for all of these nice new developments as we move through this quarter.
Right. I was going to mention, having dropped in that little video clip earlier, that there's also a little companion podcast that I did with the delightful Doug Green, and we'll drop that in as a link around this video. And also, of course, Simon and Charles, the blog posts that are relevant as well. Let's make sure that we include those as a resource in the text around the video as well. But gents, thanks very much. It's been great having the opportunity to talk, and it was a pleasure whistling over there to Florida to demonstrate Karina in real life. So with that, I think we're probably done until next time. So I look forward to seeing everybody next quarter.
Lovely. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.